Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing tonight? Thank you for coming out to Crossroads. And thank you for donating your money to this exact deal, to these guys, to the bands that are making this happen. I just want to make it clear that every dollar goes directly to the staff and the bands playing tonight. Okay, we don't take any of it. All right, so it really does matter. Thank you so much, you guys. Yeah! I want to congratulate Lulu. This is a night of celebration for all three bands playing.
I think shows are a really great way for people to come together and rally around this, common point of interest and passion and feeling, that's just kind of, that everyone's just kind of exuding and is sort of, has this epicenter of the band and the crowd.
When I think of New Paltz, I think of a Renaissance world. It feels like such a community of artists and musicians, and really a community that sticks together and promotes fun and music.
New Paltz is like a place to grow as an artist. You can take risks, and there's not a lot of huge repercussions for those risks.
My first thought really is the DIY community, just because it's like the fun part of New Paltz. And when I think about New Paltz,
obviously the house shows, which were such a huge staple of the entirety of that community in that area.
A house show is basically where people do yourself come to get you create your own space in your own environment, not at a venue or anything like that. It may be, for the most part, in your own living space, and you just from scratch create a place for people to come see and hear music.
Alright, as you guys know, all the money from this goes to the bands, goes to our security, goes to our photographer. So thank you so much for donating. And yeah, also, by the way, if anybody ever has a problem here, everything's wrong, whatever happens, come talk to me, come talk to Elijah, come talk to Caleb.
I'm not Elijah.
Yeah, that's not Elijah, right? We'll sort that shit.
Do you believe in heaven when they sing to you? Do you talk back? Don't you know? You're cold as the empty tanks of oxygen you breathe out.
I think it's safe to say that the only true person who has the face of DIY is Elijah Bloom.
When you think of New Paltz, that's just who I think of, and that's the whole scene.
I think, yeah, especially in this scene, of these 2 years, 2018 to 2020, he was the main person.
Everybody's smoking in the dark. It's closing time again. I'm too tired to speak. I don't smoke at all, but I can listen to all the lovely stories. The waitress.
he kind of stepped up to the plate and was like, not only am I doing this, but I'm gonna make it safer and more fun.
I also want to say, Crossroads doesn't tolerate any form of aggression, discrimination, homophobia, misogyny, all of that bullshit. Please get that out of here. If you see it, let me know, let Caleb know, let any of the housemates know.
He's the one who made it so inclusive. He's just such a friendly face. Whenever you see him, you just filled with so much joy. Like, ah, yes, it's Elijah. Like, he's just buddy with everybody.
Elijah, hands down.
Elijah and Caleb.
And Caleb.
Yeah,
you gotta pair them
agreed.
together. The two legends of the New Paltz scene.
Without him and Caleb both, it wouldn't have been it wouldn't have been as easy to get together.
The amount of care that they really put into it to making you feel like, you know, you should be there. You know, it was never ever feeling like you were out of place, and like all walks of life could show up, and they wanted you to feel at home. And I think that's what made it bigger than it was that you could be comfortable.
If you need water, there's cups upstairs next to the sink. If you need earbuds, they're outside in a little red bowl. Let's fucking rock.
Yeah. If they weren't doing what they were doing, I don't know how big the music community would have been.
Crossroads, this is insane. You have no fucking idea how lucky you guys are to be here right now. This is the coolest fucking music scene that has been in this new area for a long time. The fact that these guys behind you, they're willing to rent out their fucking house and do all this shit, it is crazy, it's inspiring. I would never fucking do it in a million years, but they're doing it for you because they're here to make wonderful music. Make sure and prove that you guys still care, everybody still cares. Yes! This is the most beautiful fucking man I've ever seen in my life. Up in the space, you guys are fucking awesome. Some of you guys are fucking awesome. I'm gonna get off stage, but alright. Are you guys ready now? Everybody's ready now?
Well, my name's Elijah.
I'm Caleb.
And we started Crossroads together in 2018. Is that right?
Yeah, 2018.
2018. And we've had 2 different locations. And it's been a wild journey since then.
When Crossroads started, it was for a long period of time the only place where you could go to house shows, and that was really just like the brainchild of Elijah and Caleb and Aiden.
Basically, you know, all the venues like weren't around for a good like half a year, maybe a year, and you know, thanks to Elijah, he really he started up Crossroads.
I think a lot of people are more familiar with the second version of Crossroads, which took place in a big blue house, but it really started at this little kind of shack.
It was a shack.
It's like like a bungalow over on Harrington Street, and right over the summer before we moved in there, I'd been going to New Paltz for a year, and I really wanted to start like an art house and to kind of do what these other places were doing. There was Mom's at the time, which was one of the best. I'd been there so many times to see shows, and there was Nacho House, there was Girl Gaze House, and I was like, we were like actually playing at Nacho House.
Yeah.
And they asked us to like put our band sticker up on a whiteboard with like a million other band stickers, and that's when it clicked for me that like this is a big thing. Like this is more than just a party. This is a community, like massive. And I remember looking at Caleb and saying like, we could do this. We could start a venue like this, and it would be a lot of fun, and I think we'd be good at it.
I totally agreed with you.
Yeah, so it's like a really powerful moment.
Yeah.
And I started looking for a place. It was kind of late in the honestly,
it
like
was
it was
really late.
Really late to be looking for a house. So we ended up, Caleb and I ended up moving into this little place, the bungalow, with our friend Aiden, who ran it for a year with us.
The space was so small. We didn't even have a basement. Most houses seem to have their basements.
I mean, I don't know how he made it work. It was like a living room.
Oh yeah, the original Crossroads really small.
Yeah, it was tiny. It was very packed. We only had a little tiny living room really to work with, and you could probably fit like 50 people in there. You could force 50 people in there. It would be like really, really tight.
Yeah.
But that's where like it really started. That was the spark of it all.
Because in the first year, there weren't many other houses at the time. It was pretty much just us. But during that second year, there were a lot more venues popping up.
Mm-hmm.
And you pretty much had the best answer to that with taking over DIY New Paltz if you want to talk about that.
That worked out really well. Yeah, DIY New Paltz was this page that was started by Amy Madeline a few years before we came along, and she had used it to just post like flyers and updates on shows that were happening, and she passed it on to us to take over because she liked what we were doing, and she said, "You guys seem to know what's going on. Like, you should like take it over, run it. Good luck with it, pretty much." And we realized we could kind of change it into not just, like a show advertising page, but like a group. And we were like, let's reach out to all of the venues, all of the house venues in this area.
Me and Elijah started talking too after that, after like he did the first year of Crossroads, and then we talked to like some other house show like venues, and it like this time like instead of like every house having its own show and conflicting dates and stuff like that, it was really cool because we all got to work together and make like a plan for like how can we have the most house shows, how can we like lift the community the most.
But one time we were like in my bedroom and we all just sat like in a circle and passed a duck. We had like a wooden duck, so like if you had the duck you could speak. And we passed it and everybody would be like, okay, so this is what we're doing this month and this is what we got going on.
We wanted people to not only have, like a full understanding of these are all the shows within the community, all the houses and all the people that are involved. And then we set up a Google Calendar and kind of just coordinated like, okay, we can all pick the dates that we want to have our shows so we don't step on each other's toes. We didn't want to make it like a competition, like competitive kind of thing. We just wanted it to be like a community. Like that's what the whole purpose of it was.
It's really moving to me on a very like deep level to see all of these people working together for a local community thing that would just completely benefit each other.
I think that's one of the best parts about it is that there's not like just one or two people that like are the face of it. Like it's just that it's constantly changing.
We had like Skate House, Crossroads, Sanctum, Sanctuary, and like people just having shows even if they weren't trying to start a new venue, and it was so many people going to every single show.
It was beyond words. The cooperation again. It was just really cool to see everyone working together.
Really healthy communication and just genuine support for each house venue from the rest.
So living at a house that opens up its doors to the music scene can be challenging, but it's ultimately so rewarding. Like, you just feel when the night comes this magnetic energy of the world, just the community coming, and it's very exciting.
Living in a DIY venue was very exciting, but you never really knew what to expect.
I think the sheer like volume of people was probably like the most difficult thing to manage after we realized like how popular it was at that time.
Most of the shows we ran were a lot of band acts, and Peter did a really good job of just organizing all of that.
Organizing the shows was definitely stressful. Organizing the shows also entailed running the social media and making sure that I had everybody I needed, making sure I had enough people.
So I had my friends help run the doors. I'm very short, so I had them help like hang decorations and lighting and just so many things that I could not do on my own, and just trying to manage the entire house show and like do sound checks and everything by myself. Just having like all those people to help me, and then they're all my friends, and then like we're all just hanging out at my house, like just all my friends at my house. It's just great. Like I think that's just my favorite thing about it.
Getting to do that like behind the scenes, like being part of like organizing a show, and like I'm usually just a show goer, and I always have loved that my whole life, but it was really rewarding to be like able to be one of the ones who's providing that.
I was like good friends with a lot of the people that ran the houses, and they like the day of a show they'd be like, we can't do anything, they would scrub the house down, they'd clean the whole house, they'd set up all the sound things, they'd take the furniture out so they could like move drums in. Like it was so much effort.
I give props to all the people who ran house shows because that takes a lot of effort, but like it is so rewarding once it finally like hits off.
All of the amazing pros of like just the beauty and the magic that come from these events. The cleanup, like forgetting, you kind of forget sometimes that you're in a house, and with that, there's a lot of cleanup after the fact.
Yeah. I started to enjoy it towards the end though, because you'd always be like, you'd find some weird clothes in the corner, or like it'd just be like it's like a bonding experience, and you got gloves on with all your like housemates, and you're just like, how did this even happen? And it was a lot of work too, like living there and booking and like.
Oh yeah, there's a whole process.
Yeah, hours and hours, like a week, just going into this, but it always felt worth it. It always paid off. It was like the most fulfilling work I feel like I could have been doing at the time.
What I think I brought to the community here in New Paltz was working at cafeteria and planning the shows at that space was really one of the pleasures of my life. I tried to make sure there was music or performances happening every night.
That was where I think I met everyone when I first moved to the town. And I think that's a pretty common story for people that were coming to New Paltz. Like, that was the living room of the town.
That was where we would plan our shows the first year.
Yeah.
Every Monday night we would go to their open mic and plan shows and just discuss.
Yeah. Monday night open mic. Yeah, it was like the place to be.
And when it closed, we brought open mics here to this house, and that was one of my favorite things. So we actually just filled this place up with the people who went to cafeteria every week to express themselves.
He and a bunch of other people just kind of brought all of that creative energy and just community from there, and like integrated it into our, our Crossroads, into our. Sorry, I don't even know what to call it. Yeah, literally into our basement. Infused cafeteria right into our basement. And yeah, like Sanford and Caitlin came along, who had been hosting it over at CAF, and said, hey, like, we need a space. Could we continue Monday night open mic in yours, in your basement? And it really worked. Like,
people would anybody, mostly people from the DIY scene, but anybody could come up on stage and do literally anything they want.
It's really a beautiful thing. My favorite thing about this community is that if you want to be a part of it, it's open for you. It's there.
It's a magical moment. It's very personal and intimate. It's like this energy from the band and the audience. It's crazy. It's like a high you never had before.
I prefer house shows. It's more intimate, and especially like if you play at like a venue, you're on like a stage, and there's kind of a separation between you and the audience. But then you play a house show, and people are like that close to you, and it just adds a different energy that I really like.
The thing that I've noticed a lot with like New Paltz is like, when you get off stage, people remember you. They see you like 3 hours later, they're like, you played, your set was really good. In other places where you play, you don't get that as much, and I'm not really sure what it is, but I think it has to do with just how supportive the community is. Like, I feel like that's a big part of it is people pay attention.
Yeah, you really grow bonds with the people who go to house shows.
A house show is like the best musical experience you can have.
The most intimate.
Yeah, the most intimate for sure. It's the best. It's, you're right up to the audience. They actually want to hear what you're doing. They want to see what you're all about, and nobody's trying to screw you over. They're genuinely there to give you a voice.
Yeah. No, you put it the best. It's just the best place for artists to get support and just to get a chance to be heard.
It's not something you see. Like, it's very rare, and I think just like the essence of live music, right? The essence of live music bringing, a community of college students and and New Paltz locals together, all in one space, you know, and you also get, you know, a bunch of other people from out of town, you know, just coming just to see, you know, their favorite bands, you know, their favorite acts, or just, you know, to spend somewhere, you know, this Friday, Saturday night.
In 2019, I would come here every single weekend for like a month and a half straight, just because this was the place where like I know that there's people that I'm friends with, and even if I don't see them tonight, if they're not going to the shows, I'm gonna go like mosh my heart out with a bunch of strangers. We're all gonna hug at the end, and it's gonna be amazing, and then I'm gonna go sleep on someone's couch that I might barely know. And that's just like what it is, and there's not really many places in the world that you can just like operate in that kind of existence, and it's outstanding and amazing.
It's a great stress reliever. Like every weekend I'd see my friends, and it was a great way to be social, and you just feel more confident when you see other people who are just letting loose and just enjoying the music and feeling it in their bones. Like it's great.
If you go to these DIY shows, you know that they're gonna have the people that are there. It could be 1 person, 5 people, 10 people, or 100 people, and you know that every person in that room wants to be there for the music. I think the people that come there really appreciate the art and the community.
When you go to a show at like someone's house, you know what everyone's there for, and it's not like, all right, you know, I don't know what I'm doing here. It's like, all right, let's see these bands. What's going on? What's happening? You know, and like most of the time, the bands would just be like really, really good, honestly. You know?
I think some of our closest friends have been people we've met at like house shows as well. Like some of the people that we've like that closely follow us have just been from house shows.
You don't find any nicer people than the ones that you find at like a basement house show. Or I'd never heard from anybody that went to a house show and felt uncomfortable. Like it was always very like, all right, like let's relax, let's listen to music, or let's go to hang out with friends. Like it was always like it was a community, and the friend groups would talk. I'd talk to somebody random, or someone would fall down in the pit, and it's okay, get him right back up. Everybody stop, get him right back up. Or someone would be pushed to like knock over the microphone, and it was okay, like let's save the microphone, stop what we're doing, and then continue having a good time. So I think we were very responsible too.
One time I fell in a mosh pit. It was a really interesting experience, and like I just remember like 2 random people just like helped me up. It was just like really funny.
That's the thing though. Everyone's like,
yeah, everyone like stopped and they were like, oh my god.
Since we did the tour, and that is a female-dominated pit. I've like never seen that. The girls here go hard as fuck. So we should keep doing that.
I was at Groove Grove with my old roommate, and she had never been to a house show before. She's like very quiet and mousy type person. And I had gone upstairs to like go pee and like find my other friend. And I came back down, and I was on the steps, and I was just watching her like in the middle of the mosh pit, like going absolutely ham. And at first I was like, is she okay? Like, do I need to rescue her? And then like I went back upstairs, and she like found me upstairs, and she's like, I'm having the time of my life. People are just banging into each other. And I was like, yeah, like that's the thing. And it was just so like fun. Like she was so excited, and I was so happy to see her like get indoctrinated into the thing that I was like such a fan of.
I think some of my favorite times might have been in the basement of Crossroads, crowd surfing, holding on to the support beams, trying not to get a concussion from slamming my head into the wood. There's something exhilarating about trying to not get a concussion while jamming out to some, you know, your favorite music.
For a reference, it's a very small basement with a very low ceiling, and people are crowd surfing like an inch away from the ceiling, and it's the scariest thing to watch, but it's so awesome.
It's pretty exhilarating. Like you're just up in the dusty rafters of the Crossroads basement, and you have all these hands on you just lifting you up, and it's really fun.
Everyone jams too. Like you don't want to go to a show and everybody's kind of just like this.
Yeah. Yes.
Like everyone is like always moving, no matter what kind of music it is. So.
The crowd you would see at these shows are people who are looking for an amazing night. They're looking for community. They're looking for friendship in a generation where there's really a lot of social media, scrolling and being alone. And all of a sudden you've come to this party that is like everything you always hoped college would be. And there's music and rock and roll, and people are moving and grooving and moshing and having the time of their life. And it's all filled with love. And I think you see that in the eyes of everybody at these shows.
I couldn't help but step back and look at what was going on and just be like, this is insane. Like, this is something I never thought I'd be a part of, and I see so many people coming together.
I didn't think anyone would come to our shows.
No.
Like when we first started, we were just like, we'd open the doors at like 7 and be like, think anybody's coming?
I don't know.
It's like just the most anxious, scared feeling.
We thought that, oh my god, what if like maybe 2 people, what if nobody shows up? And the first show, a fair number of people came, and I honestly was like within just a couple of shows, the house was packed.
Just kept snowballing. Yeah. And yeah, once we got that second house, there was little that could stop us. It was cool.
There was no limit.
Yeah, we had a maximum of like 300 people there one night on Halloween, actually. Mm-hmm. It was crazy. We had all these cover bands. We had Green Day, My Chemical Romance,
and Blink-182.
Blink-182, and I don't think we expected it to be that big. Mm-hmm. I think we were just like, let's throw a fun Halloween party.
Yeah.
But then it was the New Paltz Halloween party, so everyone just showed up at our house. People we'd never seen before, people that had never been to a show before, just crazy, all in costumes.
Yeah.
And it got so hot.
Oh my god.
There was like condensation dripping from the pipes, and like it was just wet on the floor. Like it was just a sauna in there.
And it was so hot in that basement.
So hot.
That we were all in costume, and
we were
by
dressed up
like
as Billy
halfway
Manning
through the
and shit.
set, we were all halfway out of costume.
That was,
it was a literal slow cooker, but it was fun.
It was. That was like our peak, I think, in terms of like people coming.
Yeah.
And then we had we worked with Skate House for their Halloween party
on November 1st, the night after.
Yeah.
I think that was a legendary night. It was like a sea of humans, and I've never seen anything like it.
We had 400 to 500 plus people come. We got shut down pretty hard.
Halfway through, it was just over.
Yeah. And then the next morning, we woke up for Homie Fest. I think we can like pretty much entirely give credit to Nico Caro.
Yeah.
From Benchmark.
Seriously.
Yeah, like he just came up to us and he was like, I've got an idea. And we were like, what's your idea, Nico? And he's like, we've got a great community here. Let's take a full day and just try to celebrate it.
Yeah.
Just try to, have like a house show that lasts the entire day and see what happens, Yeah. And it was cool. There's I believe a hole is opened up on the stage over the course of this day, and that's fucking awesome. And to make that even more punk rock, we filled that hole with a book about the presidents.
It was a beautiful day here where in daylight people came for the music, and there was a non-stop flow of people in this house, upstairs. And that's the thing, we opened up our whole home for these people, and even in the daylight it was like so amazing to see people connecting or playing piano upstairs or just feeling this community sense.
We had like 200 people-ish come throughout the whole day, 13 bands played, and yeah, that was a really proud moment for us.
In the beginning, I think DIY was very focused on the music aspect, but then there were places that had people doing tattoos, and there was art exhibits in some shows, and there were people taking photos and taking videos, and I think it was beneficial to the art community as a whole.
It became like a place, like a hub for like every budding artist in like any respect. It didn't just have to be music.
And the community is not just musicians or bands, it's artists of all kinds. And I've seen people want to sell like their photographs or their paintings or just any amount of art that they make. It's able to be seen, and I don't know, it opens them up to a whole new world also. So just to say that a DIY scene is for art, or a musician or an artist of music is, I don't know, kind of bogus, where it's art for everyone, and if you make it and it's this accepting community, then you can go and you can show it. Again, it's a community.
It's all intertwined. Yeah, and the people that were taking pictures and taking videos and like documenting the shows are like almost just as important as the people that are playing.
Each venue kind of had their own way of like integrating outside artists. Like some people would have somebody with their literal art on display selling it upstairs or something. I think the Grove did that.
We hosted basically like, a bunch of fine artists.
Being invited to display my art was a huge, sort of milestone in my art career, I guess you could call it. The atmosphere of every show I went to was just super open and friendly and welcoming, and being able to sell my art there was totally, honestly, life-changing. I only went once for that purpose, but just sort of having people be able to come up to the table and even just make a comment or respond in some way, something that my art reminds them of. Just, connecting with people over that was really, really special and really changed my whole perspective on my place in the community.
Like, they always support other artists, not just musicians. So within the DIY music community, there are photographers, there are graphic designers, there are people who do poetry at open nights, there are just a ton of different creatives that are able to get together and help each other.
We tried to have as many different kinds of artists involved in the shows as we could.
Or you'd have tattoo artists, which is cool. Like, you could just step outside onto the deck and get a tattoo, which was really cool.
And it's very sanitary. I know it sounds messed up, but I saw it and it was very sanitary.
It was definitely a different experience from working in a shop. A lot of people, very loud, but such a good opportunity, honestly.
The DIY scene isn't just musicians, we have photographers who are passionate about capturing live performances and musical acts, and I think that has really augmented just the visual component of representing the DIY scene.
There would always be a lot of digital media students from New Paltz recording the shows and getting experience and being able to be amongst this crowd, and a lot of people have taken some amazing artwork.
I would definitely say that going to shows helped me, not just as a person, but also because videography is what I was mainly going for, and that's what I want to do as a career. And getting to kind of experiment with different things and also learn. There's a lot of mistakes that I made in shooting stuff, but I definitely think that going to the shows helped me get more comfortable with meeting new people and being in social environments too, which is pretty cool.
We were open to anybody trying to work with us, and
the sky was really the limit.
Yeah, it was cool. It just goes both ways. It's fun to have them at the show, and they get a whole crowd and exposure that they need.
Yeah, seriously.
Yeah.
I think it really lends yourself to anybody who has something to say. You could say it here, no matter what your form is.
Charlie Ryder, just a friend of ours who was trying to raise awareness for cleaner water in New York State, and was trying to get a petition signed. I believe it was a success. We just kind of have we'd have that at the front, and people would come in and sign it. The New Paltz water crisis happened the next day. It's just a weird coincidence, and it was just kind of all right, well, let's start with this, New York State. But it was fun. Everybody wore blue that night.
Yeah, I'm sure you're all wondering, why are we wearing blue? Why is everything something about water? Very confusing. So my name's Charlie. I created New Era Risen. I also have a lot of glitter, so just passing around. So why are we here? That's a really good question. So when we turn on our taps, we kind of expect it to be safe, right? Like, we expect it to be clean and pure and just like normal water, except our water infrastructure has failed us in a lot of ways. 400 people in Hoosick Falls ended up having diseases like cancer because of chemical contamination. Like, innocent people do not deserve to be subject to this just because of their economic issues. Even worse than that, though, it is a severe public health risk. So, funding it's time, honestly, that New York invests in our water. It's time that New York invests in our basic, fundamental needs as human beings. So make sure to sign the petition, and which is to get more funding towards water quality infrastructure, because it's spread too thin across the state. So many small towns with like really bad economic issues can't pay for what they need. And it's ridiculous. Just because you're poor should not mean that you have bad water quality. So, yeah.
It was just a great night to spread the awareness, and it was perfectly timed. As we grew and we got into that second house, we started to, really get the ability to make social change and speak for everyone, and let anyone speak also.
We were just realizing the power of that. You can really, with that many people.
The potential of how many ears you can reach.
Yeah, you can make a really huge impact on the community.
Yeah, it's a shame we didn't get to do more.
We had planned, it was a clothing swap / food drive / benefit show, and it was going to be Sanctuary times Crossroads, and we were going to have, at my house, we were going to have, like in the beginning of the night, we were going to have like a bunch of people would bring any like unwanted food or clothing items, whatever, and everyone could just swap and take what they need, they could bring what they don't want, and just have that kind of thing facilitated in the beginning, and then the rest of the night be music. But then the 13th of March is when everything happened.
So COVID-19 came in 2020 and really knocked the whole DIY scene off its pedestal. It was really had a lot of momentum, and I think all of the music scene took a hard hit.
We had so much planned for the rest of the lease that we had in that house. We had so many show ideas and just things to be excited about, as did so many bands and other venues, yeah.
And it was sort of one of those situations where, no one knew how bad COVID was or what it was going to be like.
The water crisis had just happened right before that, and we had 2 weeks off of school. So we thought, okay, this is going to be temporary, like the water crisis. We're going to have 2 weeks off school. So no one really, registered that, these were the last shows that we were going to be in, and this was the last time that we were going to be around each other.
I remember there were shows being planned, and then COVID just hit, and it was falling apart right before our eyes.
I think for a minute we were like, all right, let's just go through with these last shows that we have planned, and then no more. And then it was so obvious in the day. It was like, oh, we need to stop. We need to cancel everything.
I remember attempting to push shows back, just to be like, it will be good and it'll be okay in a couple of weeks. We'll be able to do this show at the end of March still.
Yeah.
But then it never came.
I'll never forget the heartbreak that I felt sort of in those initial days when we were told, don't come back to school. It was really heartbreaking. Just having sort of emerged into that scene very recently, within the past couple months before that. I can only imagine what it was like for people living at the venues and people putting on the shows, musicians. But it was. I'm sure it was detrimental to that, again, just having sort of all these people, the volume of people that would be at these shows is just, not something that hasn't been possible, obviously.
There's definitely a cost of the pandemic and what it did to the DIY scene, because now, there hasn't been any shows for almost a year, and it's kind of sad to see.
It really put a damper on things because everybody really had to worry about the safety of everyone around them, themselves, and take a step back from something that we really loved and enjoyed and really took time building.
It pretty much died like when it was on like pretty much at the top of its game.
It's taken away a lot of people's livelihoods, and what the one thing that, you know, so many of these musicians who are so serious about it, this is the one thing that they pour their whole existence into, and just like that, along with everything else that we've had in life, it's just gone.
Such a big aspect of the DIY scene was like just physically being present with other people and like vibing to music.
It halted the community of what it was, and no one can do anything, you know. And like, granted, we live in a time where we're able to at least be virtual, which is way more of an upper hand than if this happened 20 years ago.
Yeah. Everything went digital real quick. It was kind of weird because, like, especially adjustment period, like when it hit, everyone was like, so we're not playing shows anymore? I mean, so like you start streaming on Facebook and like Instagram, and you'd have live stream shows, which we did a few of those.
Since COVID started, I think there's been like a much higher emphasis on the social media aspect of the scene, because that's the only way we can really like communicate with our friends and our fans and whatever.
I think that, like, for, you know, what we have, it's really the best we can do, and I'm really happy with it. I love peeping into live streams and seeing what people do.
In the beginning of quarantine around April, Elephant Jake and Carly Cosgrove from Philadelphia, we did this thing called the Quarant Tour, which is a quarantine tour, and every night for 9 days we did a live stream on Twitch, and we quote-unquote visited different cities, and we did a live show every night. We said, today we're going to be in Rhode Island, today we're going to be in Philadelphia, and every night we had our two bands, Elephant Jake and Carly Cosgrove, and 2 other locals, and like a house venue or an organization speak at the beginning, and we kind of set up live shows from different areas so that we could showcase other artists, and we just really tried to push that Quarant Tour, and it was a lot of fun. For safety and health precautions, I think it's good, and you don't want to feel like you're not doing anything or nothing's going on, so I think it's a good way to stay connected.
It was definitely the next best thing.
Yeah,
at least you can still see the person and hear them and kind of feel like you're there a little bit.
And the interaction's a lot more direct with live stream. Like, I could be like, do you like this song? Yes, no, it's not.
The same people who go to shows every weekend are the same people who are going to look for music and try to find another way to support these bands.
Like, I've definitely enjoyed watching them, like the specific bands that I'm friends with, or like just being able to see like the people that I loved watching perform, even if it's in their homes. Just being able to still do that, like that was definitely something I really valued from being a part of like the shows, is just seeing like the talent and like just people enjoying doing what they were doing. So like, because people can put out music, but it's not like the same as like watching someone perform. So I really like that we didn't lose that aspect of it.
Not everyone can do it, and then a lot more goes into it than you think. And then even if you do everything perfect, it's still, you don't know what your results are going to be.
And it's just not the same. Like, you're not going to be able to capture that same energy regardless.
Honestly, it's all about the live music for me. Like, without being able to feel the music, like, reverberating through your body, like, it doesn't have the same effect. Like, I can listen to my favorite bands all I want, and it will, like, just make me wish I was in person listening to it.
Yeah, it's impossible to say it's the same. It's pretty...
It's tough to say it'll ever be the same, but, you know, with time, I think New Pulse has a shot.
I think DIY scenes everywhere are going to start back up, and maybe, who knows, they might come back even stronger.
At some point, people are going to be like, all right, green means go. Let's get out there. Everybody wants to see music again. The question is like when, and when is, like, it's not really a solid like line that we're going to cross over. I think it's going to be like a slow kind of muddy process, because people are just slowly getting vaccinated, and I think masks are going to be a thing for a long time, a while longer, I should say. But we were talking about the idea of like vaccinated shows.
Vaccinated shows could happen.
That might be a possibility. Like we're just trying to like look into the future and be like, what's the first thing that we're going to start seeing again?
There's no definite answer, which is scary, but also really like inspiring. It offers a lot of brainstorming and, you know, thinking outside the box. You know, outdoor shows, live streams, they're cool. How do you move past that? How do we move forward with that? Is the question that I think everybody's asking right now.
I look forward to the day where we don't have to wear masks anymore, where everyone's vaccinated and we don't have to fear the disease, when we can just, go back to live music and just like this safe environment, this productive environment, this creative environment, and be able to develop as a community together and flourish.
I think the new shows are really just gonna be like crazy in terms of like how many people go and like how big the energy is, because people have been like waiting to see these things for so long.
We're at where we're at, so it's just waiting until that happens, and then once it does, I think it's just gonna like spread like wildfire. Everyone's gonna want to throw a show again because they've just been sitting on their hands for so long.
It's always been there and it always will be there. Even if there was never a live show again, I know that the people that we've met at the shows and the people that have hosted shows will always be there, as friends or as people to support or collaboration. I think no matter what way the DIY scene comes back, it will come back strong.
People, like, that's their home, like some people consider that their family. It gives people an outlet, and I think that's super important, especially with COVID. I've seen a lot of people really turn to negative ways of coping, and I think that having this community helped a lot more than it showed, because we kind of took it for granted. Like we just could go on like a Friday night to do this. Not having that is really taking a toll on a lot of people's health. So I think it's important to know that this community of DIY is more than just some loud noise. It's a sense of family, and there's compassion, and it's what people want. And I think it's important to remember that we need it.
To be fair, the house shows, like, since all the music was in the basement, and a lot of the basements had like sound stuff up, when you're approaching it, it wasn't that loud. It just sounded like someone like was blasting the TV from the streets. So overall, I'd say other people should view it, very well.
I think people should see these types of shows and these types of venues and events as something beneficial to the community. Whether they're involved with it or not, maybe you don't really know what's happening, but you could always be involved.
Of course. They were never really intended as a place for people to party, and it's something that's a great scene and is a wonderful place as long as people treat it like that. And I think changing a lot of the house show scene to being more community-based versus being a party with live music is definitely where it's been going, and it should just keep going once COVID kind of dies down a little bit.
I wasn't a big fan of the people who just came to party. Like, they were just getting trashed and then pushing people and trying to mosh to music that wasn't moshable. Like, that upset me. I was there for the music. I was there to feel it. I was there to dance and connect with my peers. So it's not about the partying at all. If you want to party, go to the Rooster House. Like, go to a frat house. Like, not here.
It's almost like an introductory where it's like, this is our replacement for parties, and then you go to it, it's like, but it's not a party. Like it's a community.
They
about
realize how much love and effort is put into everything, let alone every show.
I know like the cops and like the town don't see it that way at all, but I think like there was a decent amount of our neighbors who, like, when we first moved in, we talked to all the neighbors and like told them what we were planning and what was going on, and everyone was pretty cool about it.
Like, sometimes you have locals that don't get it, and they're just like, yeah, you're just getting drunk, and like, nobody cares. But there's other locals that are cool. Like, they encourage it.
Before we moved into the first place and the second place as well, we did this thing where we'd like, scope out the house, like see if it would work for what we wanted, and then we went around before signing the lease to meet all the neighbors. Yeah. And be like, hey, this is what we're doing. Trying to be totally transparent. Like, we tried to make it sound like not a party. Like, we're trying to build a community that supports the local musicians out here. And I will say a lot of neighbors really loved it, and they'd hear the music and be like, "That's so cool what you're doing. I can tell it's so there's so much intention behind it," and they supported it. I think both places had one neighbor though.
Each of them had just one.
Yes, that would, borderline not tolerate what we were doing.
You can put yourself out there as much as possible and tell your neighbors you're going to throw all these things and you'll be respectful of their space and like all that. You're going to like do your best to make sure no one damages their shit or whatever. But it's really up to that neighbor to be open-minded.
There is something kind of thrilling about this us against them mentality, where they don't really get it, but we do. We have this thing that we understand, and they can't take that away from us. As much as some of them might try, this is still our thing.
I feel like the New Paltz police are cracking down harder and harder on this kind of thing, which breaks my heart.
We were supposed to play the show at Crossroads, and then the cops came and shut it down, like right before we were supposed to play.
Our neighbor called the police on us. They showed up. I happened to be up front in like the front yard.
Very lucky.
And everyone was behind the house. So it's like 80 people in the backyard, and they couldn't see them. So I was just like, "Hey, sorry, we're having like a birthday party. Like, just relax. Like, we'll shut it down. Like, no need to,
No, go crazy. Don't come inside.
Yeah. Please don't go around the back of the house." And they left, and then we decided, okay, we have to move the show.
So Nico from Benchmark, Caleb, and a couple of other people hopped in a van and said, "We're going to go around town, and we are going to find a place to have the show, because this show is absolutely happening."
And we were just going from like bar to bar, just asking like, "Can we play? Can we play?"
The Arrowwood Outpost came through. And I don't think they'd really done shows or been involved.
That was the last place I was expecting to be able to fit a band.
Yeah, and I was like, "Hey, I've got all these people, and they're waiting to see 3 bands. How would you like us to come over in about 10 minutes?" And they were like, "Send them over."
They called me up. I looked at everybody, and I just stood on top of a rock, and I was like, "Arrowwood Outpost, be there in 15 minutes. We're wrapping this up. Let's go." They come back in their van, and we just started absolutely losing it, just sweating, moving as much of this equipment into these vans, piling the vans with amps, with monitors, with guitars, drums, and it was chaos.
Down there, the crowd walks from Crossroads to Arrowwood. They like helped us bring our stuff in, and we were like, "Okay, we got to do this quick."
Like everyone just like was carrying like gear and everything like down the street to Arrowwood, because like the whole community was like, "We're gonna make this show keep happening."
We finally get to Arrowwood, and we're just running with these cabinets and everything to just load it in there. And a decent number of the kids came. They packed Arrowwood Outpost. We set up Benchmark. We did like a 2-minute sound check, and then they just said go, and Benchmark just rocked it. And I was sitting outside with a few people and just sweating. I look at Elijah, and Elijah's like, "I can't believe we just did that." And so that's probably the memory that sticks out to me the most, because it was absolute chaos, but it was so worth it.
Like, that wouldn't happen anywhere else. Yeah. Anywhere else, it would be like, cops showed up, bye.
It's a bigger thing than people realize. I think the whole scene as an entirety is bigger than what the majority of people think, which is a bunch of kids like getting drunk in a basement and like getting a few bands.
I've seen other DIY scenes and they're all very similar, but New Paltz is like really different.
It's not just like a house. It's like a place people go to congregate. It's like it's a landmark on that map. It's like, "Oh, the New Paltz, have you been to like these places, these venues yet?" Like it's special, man. And
I truly believe like there's no place on earth that's doing it like New Paltz is.
I guess that New Paltz is just different.
A better understanding of New Paltz too.
Yeah, it's just different.
I feel like there's a little bit of a stigma where like so I know some people will be like, "Oh, it's like full of like hippies and stuff," and it's like,
no, it's
you gotta like go there. You gotta like go to the right place.
Yeah, you have the indie kids, you have the hardcore kids.
Yeah, exactly.
But everybody like gets
mix.
along.
I feel like we had a little bit of everybody, and I think that's what kind of made it come together so well.
This scene has such a large network and variety of different people who are all connected and genuinely care about the scene. I know it's like that in other places. Maybe I'm biased because this is where we're from in our hometown, but I would say that if we were going to have which DIY scene is the best contest, I think New Paltz will be up there.
The word DIY has different connotations, I guess, depending on where you go. Sometimes the scene can be so toxic and full of, like, you know, abusive people and just unpleasant. You know, we've definitely seen music scenes like that. New Paltz is not that. New Paltz is, it's almost wholesome. It's like incredible how genuine people are for this stuff, and they like I said, they come out every weekend. They live for it. I definitely did.
Yeah.
I still do. And yeah, it's up there with some of the best, is what I'm trying to say.
Just know that what we had here was really special, and I hope it comes back one day, and I hope that they join us. The people that are watching this, I hope you join and try and make it what Elijah did.
Maybe try going to a show when COVID's over. I don't know, like, they're fun. If it's like, it's just live music. Like, if you like live music, you'd like the shows.
I think people need to push for DIY spaces within their own communities, you know? Like, this has been such a benefit for me. It's been the most beautiful time of my life, honestly, like, thus far. Like, it has been the best part of my college experience, and I will hold these memories with me for the rest of my life. I'm so glad that I got to experience them. But till I actually was a part of a community, I didn't realize that I was missing. And I feel like a lot of people feel the same way, and a lot of people want a space to make for themselves and to be able to express themselves, and they don't have the outlets to do it. So if they were to find other people that feel that way, because they definitely exist, they can do the same exact thing, you know? Like, we have so much more power over our circumstances than we realize, and I feel like people should just put the energy into doing the stuff that they want to do.
Most likely, it will change your life in some form or another. There's no way this won't affect your life. And I think that going out and just, like I said, just doing it is always a risk worth taking.
I would hope that that the people that haven't been out to these shows and are unfamiliar with this community take away that there's a space for this, and that if this is something you're interested in, this is a place you will be welcome.
I feel like I have never been somewhere where I felt so free to express myself and be myself. Like, the first show I ever went to was at Crossroads Old House, and I never felt alienated. I never felt like an outsider. Like, I walked in, I gave my $5, and I was part of the fam, like, for those next, like, 4 hours or whatever it was, you know. And I think that's one of the best parts about it, because there's not a lot of places, like, nowadays, especially, like, with rock and roll, especially.
The first show I went to, I really didn't know anybody, and by the end of the night, I remember, like, having a smile on my face, like, so many pleasant conversations, and just, I felt really welcomed and not judged or turned away in any way.
I would hope that people take away how important it is to have community spaces for people who are younger and can't necessarily go to bars or don't want to be in that environment. It's very important to have places for people to celebrate music and to be together.
I think underground scenes have been sort of thriving in smaller towns like this over the past several years, and I really would love to see that momentum continue, and to continue to be a space for, you know, outcasts and music fans and art fans alike.
Having a supportive DIY scene is one of the most amazing things that I've ever accidentally come into contact with. I didn't know I needed it. I didn't know I wanted it, but I am very eternally grateful for having it.
Having the DIY scene and the live music scene in this town before COVID hit, and now while we're like in the thick of it, and you know, we're starting to see things kind of open back up, but it's going to be a while before it hits that point again. So, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily think that I took it for granted, but definitely appreciate what you have while you have it, especially when it's a community thing like that, because like, the community is definitely really special in this town.
The most important thing to take away from this is not a memory thing. It is for that time period of it, but it's not ending. Take it and choose to make another venue, to make it bigger, to make it your own thing, you know? It doesn't have to stop there.
Like, if you have no ounce of, like, a music scene at all from where you're from,
find some friends who also want that, you know, like just do anything, because if you start taking the initiative to make this sort of community happen and maybe find a space or some bands who would like to participate, like other people are going to take part in that, you know, other people will see it, and you know, you need the teamwork. And
it's something anybody can do, you know. It's really not, it's not something that's expensive. You can throw it together. I think it's something that more people should be doing, because there's something really special about watching 100 people mosh in your basement and like enjoy themselves and go home safe, and it's a really good feeling.
I think that it needs to be realized that there's an importance to these free spaces, you know. They really are free. While there's money at the door, you know, and some places have charged it, you know, where it's like you can't get in unless you pay. Most of them, you know, it's a free space, and that's a beautiful thing.
I think each person out there should take this example of New Paltz to their hometown, to wherever they live in the future, and say, hey, I have a nice house someday. Why don't I try to have some musicians here and have some friends, and why don't I do what they did in New Paltz wherever I end up? I think if we all had a DIY community in every town, the world would be a much better place.
I hope people that never experienced it want to see this happen again, because it will happen again. It's definitely going to make a return, and I hope they see New Paltz for what it is, with their own eyes.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
Thanks, man.
Hold on. This is a very serious moment of insanity. Hoping I'd struck gold, but all I found were microwave instructions from the 80s and a book about birds. That's when all my friends walked in, dramatically reading sentences from undiscovered classics. We laughed for hours, then we went inside for coffee and said goodbye. Lovers in the car outside, I'm looking for a place to hide from overstimulation. Then you kissed me on the stairs, apologized politely there, forgave you with another. Staring deep into your eyes, only then did I realize that this will never happen again. This will never